Indiana can sort of cement itself as we are no longer this team that's going to be fighting for 6 wins anymore.
It's Malachi Toney. Is he going to be ready?
Dante Moore, he showed improvement, better command.
What's going on, y'all? We are back here on the Cover 3 College Football Podcast, another summer school edition. That's my man, Ryan Burns, Gopher Illustrated, joins us every single year to give us everything Minnesota. Ryan, what's going on, dude?
Happy to be on here. We're finally in the summer. Like you said, I mean, we got just a few weeks here until we get to start to get in the hot and thick of it. So I'm ready for some college football, man.
And like PJ Fleck now has got to be one of the longest tenured. Like, is this year 9?
Year 10, which puts him the second longest in the Big Ten behind Kirk Ferentz. Which, if I've asked him about that, where it's like, did you ever think you were going to be here 10 years? And he's like, God, no. There's been some flirtations over the years, but again, we're still here in year 10 here in the PJ Fleck era.
It seems like a good fit there. Obviously, another strong season last year, 8-5 overall. I mean, a season I think Minnesota fans probably pretty happy about, right?
They're happy about it. I mean, we're talking about a program that, again, I even think about the over-under for this year, where I think it's still sitting at 5.5, where I think death taxes and take the over on the Minnesota over-under has been a very fruitful thing for people for the last 5 years, where they've finished above Big Ten or above 500 in the Big Ten for the last 5 years. So it's at a stage now where I think a lot of fans may be taking for granted some about how difficult it is, especially in these new ages of super leagues, to finish above 500 in the Big Ten, which Minnesota has consistently done here over the last few years. Now, there's a lot of question then about, well, how do we get back to a 2019 type of ceiling season? And we can get into the nuances of Drake Lindsey, Darius Taylor, Anthony Smith, and how this current roster is constructed. But it's tough to be upset when, again, you're consistently winning 7 and 8 games. Now, the rebuttal back from fans just remains, well, in this day and age where the college football playoff is going to be expanding here very soon, how do we find a way to get on that cusp where November games become a lot more interesting?
Absolutely. And I think it's something that's been lost over the last decade or so, where, such a few, number of fan bases truly feel satisfied with their season. A lot of it because of ESPN's messaging of like, are you in or out, right? Of like such a exclusive club. It used to be like, hey, like we're excited about going to and winning our bowl game. Like you're ending with a win, and it felt positive, right? And now it's like, all right, cool, it's a meaningless game, right? Well, why is it meaningless? Well, because a lot like the messaging, and I don't blame ESPN for this, like they bought the playoff rights, like they're going to, make everything about the playoff. But if you're making it about something that is so narrowly drawn in a sport with 138 teams, it's kind of exclusionary by nature. But that's kind of not really the Minnesota conversation. But yeah, like I think that like, if we did have a 24 teamer, they would have made it some of these years, or at least been, knocking on the door, pretty late. I'm excited about this quarterback situation, though. Like I saw Yahoo had him as a first rounder. Like, are we buying into this? Because like he definitely made some nice throws last year, man.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been an interesting offseason for Drake Lindsey, who now goes into his redshirt sophomore season. He got picked up for underage drinking in his hometown of Fayetteville, Arkansas, which nothing came of that. So I don't think anybody has to worry about anything like that. But I've also seen the folks say, well, the last guy who got popped for underage drinking in Fayetteville, Arkansas, also had a heck of a career. Now, with Drake, again, you look at the statistics, over 60% completion as a redshirt freshman in the Big Ten, 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 18-6. That's where it's been a little surprising for me to kind of zoom out from 30,000 feet, because I'm in this every single day. And I've seen Drake Lindsey. I know Drake Lindsey. But to see even guys like Bryce Underwood, who consistently say, you look at quarterback power rankings in the Big Ten, where there's like an astronomical gap between the two of them. And then you look at what they did, or you go behind the scenes with their PFF stuff, or even as you see now with NFL draft Twitter starting to find out about Drake Lindsey. I mean, he has all the tools. He's kind of that throwback mid-2000s Big Ten quarterback that you used to see, where he's all of 6'5", he's 6'6" with cleats on. He's got the ability to make any throw on the field. Now, I think we're still a year too early on all this, where Minnesota has not had a quarterback drafted since the 1960s. Now, do I think Drake Lindsey is going to be that guy? I do. I also thought that about Ethan Kaliak-Manis out at Rutgers, or we used to be here at the University of Minnesota, and somehow the Washington Commanders selected him with the final few picks there. So maybe we're onto something here. But Drake has all the physical tools, and they ask him to do a lot at the line of scrimmage in this offense, where he even sets the run game. Where you think about that's how they do it in the NFL, because I know the offensive coordinator Greg Harbaugh loves to talk about Ben Johnson or Leon Cohen as a couple of guys that he likes to follow. So they put a lot on Drake Lindsey's shoulders. So I think the NFL is starting to realize that this is a pro style offense. There isn't a lot of check with me to the sideline. There's multiple play calls going in at all times, but Drake has the physical tools. I just am highly skeptical that a redshirt freshman from the University of Minnesota is going to be a first-round draft pick in a few months here. If that happens, boy, are we in for a wild ride here in the Twin Cities, though.
So kind of like Kaliak-Manis, never wrong, just early, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hindsight analysis, always 2020. Everything just comes back around. So Ethan did, I guess, technically end the streak to an extent.
So let's stay on the passing game here. Brockington's gone, got picked up as a UDFA by Atlanta. Lanier's gone to Missouri. Coleman's gone to Wisconsin. Tracy's back. Who is he throwing to this year? I mean, obviously, Tracy's a piece of this. They got in Perry Thompson from Auburn, who wasn't fresh starts and whatnot. Like, are they going to get something out of him? Noah Jennings, I saw had a big spring game. Who are we looking at here to catch passes this year?
I mean, to your point, they lose 4 of their top 6 pass catchers.
Yeah.
And if Drake Lindsey is going to be a first-round pick or be an all Big Ten quarterback, which, again, for the University of Minnesota would be a heck of an accomplishment too in itself, he's got to have somebody to throw the ball to. Now, if you ask me right now who catches the most passes, it's not going to be a sexy answer, but it's going to be Darius Taylor. I mean, you look at Darius Taylor and what he's done when he's been healthy, he catches 4 to 6 passes a game, which is part of why if Darius Taylor can stay healthy, Minnesota star tailback for 10-plus games, he's going to be an NFL draft pick. He's going to be top 10 all-time in receptions here at the University of Minnesota because that's part of his skill set. But it will be Javon Tracy in his second year here. Former All-MAC receiver at Miami of Ohio, had some flashes like a 3-touchdown game against Northwestern last year, but there was some inconsistency. You have the Rate Bowl MVP and Jalen Smith coming back. Can he take a step forward with a new position coach in Isaac Frichte? You mentioned Noah Jennings. He is the guy of the transfer receivers I'm the highest on. I know that our 24/7's transfer portal rankings have Perry Thompson as the number 1 guy in Minnesota's transfer class. As someone who watched Perry throughout the entire spring, I think he's swimming a little bit, going from Auburn's offense to more of a pro-style offense here at the University of Minnesota, where maybe the route tree has to grow a couple more branches for him to be able to play a lot more. But I think you're going to be looking at that trio right there. And then it's also going to be Darius Taylor. So there's a lot of transition going on at tight end, but if they can get Noah Jennings or something from the Tulsa receiver as well, and Zion Steptoe, who also had a nice spring for them, it's going to be a lot by committee. I think you'll see some weeks where one guy has a big game, and then the next week somebody else does, but it's going to be Darius Taylor. Then what can this receiver core also give you?
For sure. Offensive line wise, they returned a pretty decent bit. Are we feeling good about this group?
The offensive line has been the bane of what I assume has been the offensive coordinator's existence for the last 3 years, where I'm a big offensive line yard stat guy, where you look at last year where RTB in the University of Minnesota doesn't stand for just row the boat, it's run the ball. And they stunk at running the football. I mean, they were dead last in the Big Ten. Everybody was losing their mind up here. And then you watch the games and everybody's blaming the offensive coordinator. And it's his offense, but go watch the offensive line. If you can't run into an even box in the Big Ten, may the Lord bless you and keep you, because, I mean, you're just going to be in for a long day at that point. Now, the solace being in the games that Darius Taylor actually did participate in the 4 games where he got over 19 carries last year, they ran it for like 5 yards a clip. Now, the issue being the right side of the offensive line last year was just a complete sieve. I mean, they were not good. Left side of the line was better. You look at what they have coming back this year, and I think an underrated part of what this could be offensively is they have had a revolving door at center the last 3 years. Now they have a return guy at center in Ashton Beers, 5th-year guy. They've got a 4th-year guy in Greg Johnson, who has started all 3 years. I know in one of the NFL mock drafts I've seen, some have him as a first-round pick. I'd love for that to be the case because, again, there should be a heck of a run game if so. You could have a senior also starting at right guard, but it's going to be the tackles, man. I mean, you got 2 third-year guys at tackle in the Big Ten, which in my mind, again, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think for generally most offensive line prospects, you don't want them starting until their third years.
Yeah.
And you just want multiple years of development because that's just a position where you need to add weight, add strength, add technique, whatever it may be. So they'll have a returning starter and Nathan Roy at left tackle, but that right tackle position is one that they need to have shored up because it's been a struggle for the last 3-4 years there. Now they're going to be putting a lot of expectations, I believe, on Bennett Warren, who is a former top 150 overall prospect from the University of Tennessee is where they got him. He played a little bit over the last 2 years for them. He has the physical tools. I've seen it. But again, anytime you're starting for the first time in the Big Ten at tackle, you're going to have some ups, you're going to have some downs. So in theory, the interior of the offensive line should be a strength for them. That's pretty good on paper. But from what I've seen over the last couple of years, it's just a group that needs to play a lot more consistently and with more physicality.
Absolutely. So you mentioned Darius Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
When healthy, he's an absolute workhorse.
Yes.
Do they have somebody else who can kind of take some of his carries this year if necessary?
I think the plan is going to be for Darius, and that's been one of the interesting talking points for him. It's his entire career where when healthy, Darius has been fantastic. The issue is soft tissue injuries have just killed him. Yeah. And that's where he has now, I think one of the powers of NIL and rev share is he's now hired his own personal chef. So he's trying to do it that way. He's also doing Pilates, which I know you're a big Pilates fan.
Yeah,
you do 3 times a week down there in Florida. So
have you tried to do it?
Yes, and it is one of the most humbling experiences I've ever had.
Yeah, it is really hard.
It is incredibly hard. I never thought I'd be talking to a star tailback about pelvic floor, but that's one of the conversations that we've had here at the University of Minnesota with Darius Taylor. So he's trying a lot of.
You got to shore it up.
Yeah, you do. And so he's trying a lot of different things, and I give him credit for that. Now, there's also the funny part is we talk about the angry running back god up here on odd seasons where going back to 2021, I mean, they were just hemorrhaged, which is how someone like Bucky Irving got his start here at the University of Minnesota. They had 5 tailbacks go down. 23, they had 4 or 5 tailbacks go down. 25, Darius Taylor essentially misses 75% of the season. So I think the goal would be to try and get him to 20 to 25 touches a game. Now, to your point, what's it look like behind him? It's very much by committee because they lost their RB2 in Femi Ijiboy to Purdue to the transfer portal. Their third guy, who was a former Washington transfer, he graduated. So someone like Elon's TJ Thomas or a true freshman coming in like Ryan Estrada can be your east-west. And then it's also going to be some north-south guys, like some more freshmen. So it's a lot of, I'll say, uncertainty behind him. They really need Darius to stay healthy because I don't think they've recruited and retained as well as they should have during their time here at running back. So you're going to see plenty of Darius.
No doubt. All right. So anybody else on this offense, you're like, ooh, if they arrive on scene a year before like you or the staff expects them to, that would really change how you feel about this offense?
I think if we go back to the pass catch,
you can't say Drake, obviously, because
I mean, if Drake Lindsey one of the things for him has just been trying to, get his body right, where he's, again, 6'5", 6'6", and it's avoiding sacks. And if he can just navigate the pocket better, which means being leaner, better footwork, that would be nice. But I also think it's a true freshman receiver by the name of Hayden Moore, who, I mean, you talk to some folks here on staff, I mean, he has blown past any expectations that they had for him in spring ball. He's a Florida kid, Newberry High School. And
outside of Gainesville.
Yeah. I mean, he has been very, very good for them since the moment he stepped on campus in January. 6 foot, doesn't look like someone that should be going to prom or just went to prom here in May. So if Hayden Moore can give them something as a 6 foot, deep speed kind of guy, that would be very, very good for this offense.
Absolutely. All right, Ryan, we hit our first break here. On the flip side, a little defense, a little schedule talk, expectations, etc.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ hits every highlight from all the sports that matter to you.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, streaming free 24/7.
All right, guys, we're back here on the Cover 3 College Football Podcast. That's Ryan Burns. All things Gophers for us at Gophers Illustrated. All right, so defensively, pretty decent season again. Defense did some good things. Any real changes about how they're going to run stuff this year? Or you think it's more the same with Collins and Monroe?
I think it's gonna be a lot of the same. I mean,
Okay.
they did bring in someone like Brian Nardo, who's got extensive coordinating experience going back to, let's say, Oklahoma State. But I think it's going to be a lot of the same. And in theory, this should be the strength of the team because you return an all Big Ten, first team all Big Ten defensive end by the name of Anthony Smith, which it's still fascinating to me that someone like Anthony Smith, who is first team off the bus, 6'6", 280, first team all Big Ten, shattered records for tackles for loss and sacks, still isn't necessarily getting first round buzz when he is one of the most powerful players that you will watch on tape. And he looks the part. I mean, he looks like everything I see go in the top 60 picks, yet I haven't seen a lot of NFL draft people talking about him. Now, you've also got someone like Carter Menz alongside of him. TJ Bush, I think, is going to be an underrated, probably the most underrated transfer addition for Minnesota because he has been just an incredibly productive pass rusher at lower levels from Liberty to Cal. But you've also got guys like Maverick Baranowski, who had a 100 tackle season at linebacker. You got John Nestor, the Iowa transfer, who had 6 picks. Kerry Brown, who is the better of the two safeties last year between Coy Parrish and Kerry Brown. I mean, you've got guys that have the potential to be NFL draft picks, if not, again, very good all Big Ten players. So this should be the strength. And with Collins returning for yet another year, the hope would be you know how to use these and get a more consistent performance out of them.
I mean, so if you have this defense, playing up to what we think its potential is, and obviously if Drake Lindsey, let's assume he plays at a level that gets him first round buzz entering the 2027 season and not maybe like the super high projection. There's a lot of potential here. Defensively, do you have any concerns like as far as spots? They're still looking for answers there coming out of spring?
I'd say defensive tackle, certainly, where if you can't stop the run in the Big Ten, I mean, it's just not going to go well for you. And that's where they graduated their top 4 guys at defensive tackle, and they're going to be replacing them with none of the guys, whether it's transfers or internal guys, have played more than 100 Big Ten snaps. I mean, you are replacing them with unknown, and that's going to come with ups and downs. Now, you've got some prospect pedigree with a 4-star like Riley Sunrum. You took a couple of guys from the portal like Naquan Crowder from Marshall or the Florida International transfer, Zion Chapman. I mean, you've got some guys that can fill holes. I just think they're a year early at defensive tackle where their entire, say, 4 or 5 man rotation there will be back for 2027 in theory. But now they're going to be getting their feet wet. And when you're getting your feet wet at defensive tackle in the Big Ten, that's just going to come with a wide range of spectrums. You also look at another spot at linebacker where they're going to be rotating a lot of different guys there, such as Matt Kingsbury, Emmanuel Carmo. But it's that other corner spot too, not manned by John Nestor, which was a problem for them at points last year. So the question is going to be whoever does win that job, say it's Michigan State transfer Aiden West. I mean, how consistent of play can you get there? I feel really good about starters, say 1 through 6, but then it's starters 7 through 11, where you just look and say, what am I going to get on a weekly basis from guys who are going to be getting their feet wet at a more extensive level?
Basically, I have to attack the situation with numbers and hope you got enough, because
Right.
you just, with all that uncertainty, you kind of have the safety of numbers is the hope, certainly. I guess kind of the same question I asked you on offense. Is there a guy on defense who, maybe you're not thinking, like that guy's for sure a starter and a good one, but long-term has the potential to be that you're like, oh, if he emerges sooner than I expect or than the staff expects, that really it changes the defense's fortunes?
I think I got to go with Aiden West, who is that Michigan State transfer, where as a true freshman for Michigan State last year, he played 400 plus snaps at corner. And one of the funnier parts of Minnesota's portal class is you look at some of the guys that they took. Well, when they played against Minnesota, such as Michigan State last year, according to PFF, Aiden West had his best game against the Gophers. So it's one of those where Aiden West has the ideal size. He's 6 foot, incredibly long. He had a very strong spring for Minnesota. And if you can have 2 corners that you really trust on the outside, you know it better than I do. That allows you to get creative with your front 7. So if you're not getting pressure with 4 or 5, you can do some different things to try and disguise coverages, disguise blitzes. But if Aiden West arrives ahead of schedule here, I mean, that would be something to where, I mean, it just allows you to get so much more creative when you don't have to try and hide in zone coverage or whatever it may be. So if Aiden West clicks, which again, I think is a year too soon probably here, but he does have Big Ten experience as an underclassman, 2 lockdown corners or 2 guys that you really trust on the outside. I think Danny Collins would take that all day, every day, and twice on Saturdays.
No doubt. So turn to the schedule here. I'll read it off for the folks at home on the audio side. So Eastern Illinois, Mississippi State, Akron, at Washington, Michigan, at Purdue, bye week, Iowa, at Indiana, UCLA, at Penn State, Northwestern, and at Wisconsin. I like that I don't see Ohio State and Oregon on here, certainly. Yep. People will say there's like a top X number in the Big Ten. I think Penn State is very likely to end up in that, but I think that is not fully schedule driven, but heavily driven by the schedule that Penn State drew this year, which is incredibly friendly. I kind of like this as far as like where you get the winnable games at. Like, not that any game here is not winnable, but like at Indiana, it's going to be pretty tough, assuming that they don't have a major drop off from their national title season. But I see Purdue, I see UCLA, I see Northwestern, Wisconsin. Like Wisconsin, after getting just absolute short into the stick schedule, I think 3 years in a row, like they finally have a really, really nice schedule. So I think they'll be improved record wise. I don't know like how much of a better team they are than they were last year, but like they should be 2 wins better in the win column for sure, just based on the draw. I think I like how this sets up for Minnesota, man. Like, you get Mississippi State early, you get Akron, like you should get off to 2-1 or 3-0, and then Washington. I guess we'll see. Like, you're probably an underdog there, but not like you're not dogs by like 14 out in Seattle. Michigan at home is not easy, but I think I'd rather get them at home, like to the extent we think that's winnable, right? And at Purdue's like not a real tough road trip in this conference. I like how this sets up. I think for the Gophers. Do you?
That's why I think it's interesting that the number is at 5.5 and is held strong. Where, I mean, you look at the recent track record of 7 or more regular season wins for the last 5 seasons, and then you look at the schedule. And I think a lot of the schedule and how I view it is when do you get them and then what's right before them. I mean, you talk about getting Mississippi State early and you get them at home. That's great. Or you talk about Indiana, and I'm not telling you Minnesota's going into Bloomington and going to beat the national champs, which that in a statement, if you and I were to have been discussing that 3 years ago, I think a lot of people would have laughed at us. But when Minnesota plays on that Halloween night, that is the ninth consecutive game, the Indiana Hoosiers. And oh, by the way, the 3 previous games are at Nebraska, Ohio State at home, and at Michigan. So you don't think, especially with those final 2, that Indiana might be a little bit beat up going into that final game before the bye, or even Northwestern. When Minnesota gets them at home on Senior Day, that is the 10th consecutive game because of how wonky Northwestern schedule is with their new stadium opening.
Their early bye, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy with some of this different types of things. So I'm not here to tell you that, I'm drinking the maroon and gold colored Kool-Aid and Minnesota's going to be in the college football playoff. I just think it's interesting to look at the nuance of the schedule of when do you play them, or even UCLA. You mentioned them. UCLA's got to come to Minneapolis in November. It's either going to be 55 or 60 degrees and great, or it could be 35 and sneaking. And I've seen that when these California teams or West Coast teams have traveled here and done multiple time zones out to the Twin Cities, especially in November, things usually tend to go well for Minnesota. So
it wasn't even that cold. When did USC come to town? Was that last year or 2 years ago?
24, and it was not cold, by the way.
Yeah, right. And
the multiple time zone thing.
Yeah, and the weird sunset, because that was the FS1 game.
Yes,
where like the team that had the sun in their eyes for the first quarter, second quarter, was like just you had no shot to pass the ball.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, you were staring straight into the sun, both pass catcher. I mean, it was just not great.
No, exactly. Ryan, I think I like what they got here. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to predict them to go 8-4, but like I could see. I could definitely see them making a bowl game comfortably, to where you're not sweating that Wisconsin game at the end of the year to make a bowl.
No, and I think, and even that Wisconsin game, I mean, that's a rivalry that Wisconsin used to own, and now Minnesota's won, I think, 4 of the last 5 there. Now Iowa at home after a bye week. I mean, Minnesota's been shoved in the locker. PJ Fleck and the staff have been by Kirk Ferentz for most of the tenure. I think they're 1-8. but you get them at home. So I mean, there's ways to talk yourself into a potential ceiling type of season if everything clicks with 8-9 wins. Now, I think I'd be more comfortable if the over/under was at 6.5. I think it'd be more interesting. But I look at this and say, you've got some NFL guys on the defensive side of the ball, or at least potential all Big Ten players: Anthony Smith, Carter Menz, TJ Bush, Maverick Baranowski, Kerry Brown, John Nestor. You've got a quarterback that you believe in, where he had a promising freshman season. You've got an NFL tailback in Darius Taylor. It's just, can these ancillary pieces, where if the floor comes out, I mean, it could be bad, can they raise up enough to make some of these games competitive? Because you mentioned like a game at Washington in late September. I mean, Washington at home has been tremendous over the last 5 years. I mean, Minnesota's got to go multiple time zones. The Gophers were absolutely atrocious on the road last year. They couldn't figure out how to travel. This will be their first opportunity on the road this year. I just think it's a very interesting thing to look into, where, again, you've got opportunities for ceiling. You need key guys to stay healthy, certainly, but you've also got pieces where you're old at certain spots. And I think if you're old on the offensive and defensive lines, where certain pieces they are, you can see the 8-9 win possibility with it. But it's also going to be a lot dependent upon if the Gophers can travel, because we didn't talk about it. I'm telling you, they were absolutely horrific on the road. I mean, they lost at Cal. They lost all of their road games last year. And then the bowl game was an absolute slog against the New Mexico Lobos, which I think Jason Eck is a heck of a coach. And I think he is the coach in waiting at the University of Wisconsin, where if they didn't, not currently, they do not have an athletic director, president, nor chancellor. So it's tough to fire Luke Fickell when no one in charge above him has any power. But I just think a lot of it, if they can find consistency, which is the name of the game in college football for 18 to 23-year-olds, it's just, you can see 7, 8, 9 wins potentially. But if they have no consistency, then you're going to be sweating out that bowl game, as you said, come Northwestern and Wisconsin at the end of the year.
Absolutely. Ryan, always enjoy it. And we'll see you soon at Big Ten Media Day.
I appreciate you.
All right, take care, man.